Psalm 90. Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world. It is amazing. From everlasting and everlasting, you are God. First, the Lord is eternal. You have been our dwelling place in all generations. Because God is eternal, the word dwelling place is refuge. It means God is our refuge and our strength. All of the time, from generation to generation, for thousands and thousands of years, okay? Place of refuge for all generations. And then verse 3 to verse 6 says, you return man to dust and say, return, O children of man, for 1,000. Return, my gosh. You know, the word return here is very interesting because to dust, return to dust. Okay. It's that means we're coming to an end. Let me see what NIV Study Bible says here. Okay. NIV. Okay, let's try that. Okay, so the return is a Hebrew word appeared twice, Genesis 3:19. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. Did you hear that? Since for dust you are, and to dust you return. This is very humbling and sober thing. If you overthink about life in this world and think about all that is in this world only, you are so short-sighted. You got to think about you are dust, to dust you return, because you came from dust. I come from dust. We come from dust. But the only thing that makes us different from dust is God breathed raw, his spirit raw, his spirit into us to make us alive. Okay? But God, because after Adam fell, God said, to dust you shall return. Okay, by the sweat of the brow, and from dust you came, and to dust you will return. That's because of the curse of disobedience to God, rebellion against God. But of course, thank God that God is providing us eternal salvation. Okay, eternal salvation through Jesus Christ. That we don't have to stay in dust. We can have an eternal life to come. Okay, so this is a very humbling part, Humankind's humble demise contrasts with God's eternal nature. So it's a way that we begin to realize that we are but dust. Return to dust, you mortals. NIV say we have to be humble before God. We are mortals. Basically from dust you return, and appears in Genesis 3:19, which I read. Okay, so the Lord's eternal nature is verse 1 to verse 2. You have been a dwelling place throughout all generations. God's eternal, right? So verse 4 says, 1,000 years in your sight is like a day that has gone by, or just like a watch in the night. This is interesting. So this highlights the difference between the Lord's and the humankind's existence in time. Our time is very different from the Lord's time. 2 Peter 3:8. But do not forget this one thing, dear friends, with the Lord a day is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years is like a day. In other words, God's outside the domain of time. It's not like Jesus was crucified and rose from the dead 2,000 years ago, and he hasn't returned yet. 2,000 years like 2 days to him. Is that kind of metaphoric language so that we understand is anthropomorphic language so that anthropomorphic beings, anthropomorphic means humans, human beings can understand his language. So God has to communicate that. In fact, the whole concept of time is created by God and for God, and so he's totally not under time, but we are. Okay, so 2 Peter 3:8 talks about 1,000 years. So it's a call to patience. Cites this to affirm that the Lord does not account for time the same way the humans do. All right, so let's see the ESR Bible says. Okay, so you say nothing. Okay, so this is just give us a glimpse of a return to dust. From dust we comes. Okay, It is really important that we don't get too hung up with the world now. Don't get braggish of what we accomplish, bragging about it and all this sort of indulgence into this world, because we will return. See what it says here. You turn people back to dust, saying, return to dust, you mortals. You mortals. That's NIV. That's the ESV says what? You return man to dust and say, return all children of man or mortals. Okay, so this is very important so that we know that we are very transient in this world, and God is outside the dimension of time.